Hey guys, Comic Boom here. Part 5 of 5, my top 10 of my top 50 most sentimental comic books. This is part 5 of 5, ranking my top 10 most sentimental comic books of all time. Parts 1 through 4 have already been, they're already posted on YouTube. I'll leave the links for all of them below. Wow, it took a long time for me to put this all together. These aren't necessarily key comics, these are just comics that mean the most to me. Number 10 was Fables. Now, number 10 is Fables. I actually reviewed this in part 4. I ended with rank number 10. But this just makes more sense if I make this final issue a top 10 video. But in any event, Bill Willingham's Fables is a fantastic series. I talked about it in my last part 4 or 5 of my top 50. Fantastic. It branched off into Cinderella, Jack of Fables, The Fairest, numerous hardcovers. The ongoing story of all the fairy tales, the Mundies trying to interacting with us Mundies, as we call them, normal folk, and how they exist based on our belief in them. And my favorite aspect of Fables, of course, and the favorite of many people, the ongoing relationship and ultimate love affair and love between Big Bad Wolf and Snow White. It's a great story. And then I love the Red Rose, how it ended with Red Rose, Snow White's sister. So much to love about Fables, such an epic tale. But, all right, so number 9 on my list of most sentimental comics. Number 9 is related to my favorite artist of all time, and writer, frankly. I shouldn't say favorite writer, but favorite artist, Darwyn Cooke. The New Frontier. The New Frontier, number 1, frankly, it's the entire series that I could show. I got the hardcover. I've got the omnibus of the absolute edition of The New Frontier. It's absolutely epic. What's not to love about The New Frontier? It's really the 1960s. It's the New Frontier. It refers to John F. Kennedy's use of the New Frontier. That was one of the platforms that John F. Kennedy sort of spoke of when he first became president, that America was on the verge of a new frontier, hearkening a new age of enlightenment, a new age of excitement. And Darwyn Cooke captured that. His beautiful art, no one draws faces, a beautiful smile on beautiful DC comic women better than Darwyn Cooke. He's absolutely epic. Darwyn Cooke is going to be on this top 10 again. There's so much about him that I love. He embodies the hope and the passion of the DC universe. Nothing embodies the DC universe better than the New Frontier. Nothing embodies the aspect and the sense of hope better than the New Frontier. Arguably, there's one other that competes with it, and that ranks at my number 1. But this coming in at number 9, Darwyn Cooke's The New Frontier, absolutely epic. His version of Wonder Woman I love, his Superman, his Green Lantern, his Hal Jordan is just the purest incarnations of all those characters, from Martian Manhunter, Green Arrow, Flash, Barry Allen, the Losers. I mean, good Lord, it's unbelievable. Such an epic series. If you're going to buy this, buy it in any form you can. Buy it in digital, buy it in trade paperback. Personally, I would buy if you can afford it, buy the absolute edition if it's still available. Absolutely epic. Easily ranking number 9, and it could rank higher, but for the other 8. Now, number 8. Batgirl number 73. This is the end of Batgirl. This ends the Destruction's Daughter story arc. Here lies Cassandra Cain. The Batgirl series ranks up. Now, this one came out in a cover date of April 2006. It's been 15 years, and this is still the best version of Batgirl I've ever read. It's my favorite DC character, and what I would consider, at a minimum, my favorite new DC character. I still consider Cassandra Cain new. She still hasn't gotten the respect she deserves. DC has blundered her in a number of ways. In particular, they keep trying to Caucasianize her. I don't know why they've gone through these. Different artists seem to have a difficult time grasping the concept of an Asian character. Draw them so they look Asian, please. Finally, we got with the Asian celebration that just came out this past week, the DC celebration of Asian heroes. She's actually drawn that she looks Asian. God forbid. What a concept. But in any event, fantastic character. She speaks in the language of motion. At least she did in her original series. Marika Tamaki sort of understood that. She did a great short story that is in DC Celebration of Asian Heroes that came out this past week. Read it. It's really good. But this Gabrich Man and Delberdang, whatever the hell, I can't pronounce names. In any event, this original Batgirl run was fantastic because Cassandra Cain, raised by her parents were David Cain, a master assassin, and Lady Shiva, shrouded in mystery. And Lady Shiva seeks out her daughter because Lady Shiva has a death wish that ultimately Cassandra Cain fulfills by ultimately killing, or does she kill her mother Cassandra, her Lady Shiva, at the end of issue 73. It's so fantastic. She speaks in the language of motion. She cannot speak. She can't read, and she's not good at speaking. That's her weakness. That's what made her stand out as a member of the Bat family, is that she can speak in the language of motion. She can read people's body language, which makes her arguably a better fighter than even Batman and even her mother, Lady Shiva, or at least very competitive with them, depending on how you might view that. And fantastic. And how she navigates her life throughout those 73 issues is such a joy to read, such a great series, and it was largely unencumbered by, it wasn't interfered with by editorial, by other big events. There was a couple it had to cross over into, but for the most part, this was a series that was left to grow on its own. It was just fantastic, and unfortunately, Batman and Robin Eternal sort of ruined Batgirl, Cassandra Cain, a little bit. She's now going back to her basics. At least I hope she is, because she does speak in the language of motion. She's not very good at speaking. She is, in my view, on the spectrum for autism and ought to be written as such, because that's what makes her the most interesting. She's not just a one-note martial artist, and I hope that DC appreciates that moving forward. And kudos to them for having her be on the cover of that beautiful Jim Lee cover of the celebration of DC Asian Heroes, which just came out this past week. But wow, love this series. Now, number 7 on my list is the classic Crisis on Infinite Earths, issue 7. Guys, when I remember, this was the first time I ever cried reading a comic book. This came out in, I guess, October of 85. I would have been 14 at the time. Pardon me, 16 at the time. And wow, this crushed me. This absolutely crushed me. I was a huge fan of the Kurt Swan Superman, the pre-Crisis Superman, the pre-original Crisis universe. I was a huge fan of. I understood the universe. I didn't need it. I didn't need an original Crisis. I didn't need a Crisis in order to understand the continuity of the DC universe. I loved it for exactly what it was. It was just perfect to me. Now, it was even better after the Crisis. I still loved it, still do. But my point being is, I was a big fan of Supergirl Kara, Linda Danvers. And when she died saving the universe, saving the multiverse to give them an extra chance against the forces of the Anti-Monitor, and when she dies in Superman's arms, that scene is so beautifully, epically illustrated by George Perez, absolutely gut-wrenching. It has left an indelible mark on my consciousness and on my soul for the rest of my life. This isn't just an epic cover. This isn't just an epic cover, epic spec for cover, but epic story. Undeniably part of one of the best big events of all time. Second to Civil War. But in terms of my heart of hearts, I rank this higher than Civil War 1 because for me, the impact that this had on me as a reader, and it fostered my love for DC Comics, even though they killed off one of my favorite characters at the time. She would come back in greater glory and ultimately be written by Peter David years hence, which would lead to Fallen Angel, which is not a Supergirl title, but inspired by Supergirl, also written by Peter David, which was on my list. I think part 1 of 5, or from somewhere in my top 50. I can't remember where I ranked all this stuff, but in any event, fantastic series. No one does the original Crisis on Infinite Earths better than George Perez and Marv Wolfman. Wow. Just plain wow. Of course, I got the omnibus. I got multiple hardcovers of this. Fantastic series and a fantastic comic. All right. Coming in at number 6, we have Amazing Spider-Man Giant Size Annual number 21. Now, I have these in both these covers. What's epic about this is I remember where I was when I was reading this, and this was the year that I graduated in 1987. And not only was it a rite of passage for me, graduating, I was graduating grade 12, party in hell, party in heaven, we're the grads of 87. Yeah, I know, kind of corny, but it was what it was. And well, that's the same year that Peter Parker got married. And I remember being so moved by this because, Peter Parker was good looking. He's a good guy. And he ends up with the girl of his dreams. Face it, Tiger, you hit the jackpot. And wow, just plain wow. And as I got older, I loved the marriage between Peter Parker and Mary Jane. And I particularly love when finally they got a child. May Parker, Amazing Spider-Man, Renew Your Vows. I love this series, which kind of ultimately is flows out of this, right? And just fantastic, just absolutely fantastic. And it really fostered my love for Spider-Man. And even though I'm a DC guy, I have a huge Spider-Man collection because ultimately, in many ways, Spider-Man felt more like a DC character because he felt more like he had the morals of Superman, and he was less morally conflicted as the other heroes. We always could rely on Spider-Man to make the right call, even though he might struggle with it a little bit, but you knew Peter Parker was just too nice a guy that really he was always going to do the right thing no matter what, and he always did, and he deserved to be happy. And that's why I love this so much. And again, Amazing Spider-Man Annual 21, fantastic, absolutely love this, and ranks at number 6. Now, coming in at number 5 for myself is Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes. There are multiple issues of this. Now, this is, I'm showing the Legion of Superheroes because this is at the end of the series. I got the whole Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes. I got most of the entire run. And this was the end of it, which marked the end of an era, and where he basically is leaving the Legion of Superheroes, never to return. Ultimately, after the Crisis on Infinite Earths, there was no Superboy in the Legion of Superheroes. John Byrne did the Man of Steel, and while John Byrne did the Man of Steel and rewrote the Superman mythology, basically the Superman origin, he rewrote Superman so Superman did not have a young. He didn't have a Superboy incarnation. He was never Superboy. He gained his powers when he was 18 and became Superman when he was 18. And so he was actually kind of a jock in high school. That's one thing that John Byrne brought to Superman, was that Clark Kent was always an alpha male growing up. And when he was 18, he acquired his powers. And so he never had a Superboy career. But so one of the things that I always missed in the post-original Crisis universe was the lack of Superboy in the Legion of Superheroes. I'm throwing in with that. When Superboy was in the Legion of Superheroes, my favorite character in the Legion of Superheroes was Karate Kid. And what I loved about Karate Kid is that I jumped right away and I started collecting the Karate Kid series as well. And this is issue 1 of the Karate Kid. Absolutely love this because at one point, Val Armour, who was the Karate Kid, would have adventures in the 20th century. And in his adventures in the 20th century, he had his love interest, and he always had an inferiority complex, Karate Kid, because he always felt that because he never had superpowers, he mastered over 1,000 different forms of martial arts from all over the galaxy in the 30th century. And I just think that just if I could play script doctor for DC, I would love for Lady Shiva to have an adventure in the 31st century and run into Val Armour and bring Val Armour back with her to the 21st century and have them have an adventure together. And I've always wondered if in some crazy way does Lady Shiva have a legacy that is remembered in the 31st century? Because Lady Shiva, Cassandra Cain, all these things should be linked to the 31st century. That is what I wish DC would play with. I think it would be awesome. It would be epic. But unfortunately, they got Bendis, who's doesn't have much of a connection or knowledge of the DC lore to know what concepts to play with. But in any event, Legion of Superheroes. This is issue 259, but I really call it Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes. All of them together, just embodied in this one issue here. And of course, Karate Kid number 1. I'm cheating. I'm throwing that in as well at number 5. All right. So coming in at number 4 is DC Comics Presents number 26. Now the bottom line is here. I got so many scraps of paper here doing these videos on this. Creating a huge mess in my man cave. This is so goddamn frustrating. Trying to find all these comics just to show them to you, and I still couldn't find my Ultimates, but that's another thing on another video. But number 26, the first appearance of Teen Titans, and I mean, good lord, there's a key appearance. Of course, I got literally multiple copies of the new Teen Titans by George Perez and Marv Wolfman. Literally changed the scope of comic books, guys. If you want to know why I was never really a fan of the X-Men, I stopped collecting the X-Men in about early 90s because I just lost respect for the X-Men, because the X-Men they're whining. A bunch of whining sucks. They're still a bunch of whining losers, Oh, woeful me. Everybody hates me because I'm a mutant. Suck it up, you babies, you pussies. I mean, suck it up. Teen Titans were where it's at. They were, they didn't feel discriminated against, and they weren't, because the DC universe is just a better place to be, and it's a better place to read comic books, generally speaking. It just was. It was. The new Teen Titans were awesome. The X-Men were depressed all the time and whining about their place and whining about being mutants and blah, blah, blah. Got so sick of the X-Men. That's the one great thing what George Perez and Marv Wolfman brought with the new Teen Titans, is that this was an awesome, bright, young group of young adults that were kicking ass, taking names, and they had all kinds of reasons to maybe they had their own personal issues, but they never had issues against society and were whining and bitching and all that crap that was happening with the X-Books. This was much better character work in my mind with the new Teen Titans. That's why I liked it. Now I realize that there's all kinds of people that would disagree with me on that, and that's okay. And I also, from the bottom of my heart, just don't care. It's okay to be wrong. Live with it. The new Teen Titans was the best. You'll note there's not a single X anything in my top 50. There wouldn't be a single top X anything in my top 100, despite me having hundreds of key X books from that era, because it just ultimately is not that enduring a comic book. But the new Teen Titans is where it's at, and this is why it's at number 4. All right, so at number 3, what do I have at number 3? Here we go. Prez number 2. What? Prez number 2 by Mark Russell, art by Caldwell. Oh my God! Really? My top 50? I've been collecting for 50 years, and I'm putting Prez number 2. This came out of the DCU. Oh my God! How can I put Prez number 2 on this list? It's really simple. It's really simple, because Prez number 2, one scene made it my second favorite comic book of all time. One scene in particular, and the scene is where the young girl that would become president, she actually becomes president in the future, an extraordinarily crazy series of events. She ends up visiting her dad, who is dying in the hospital. And ultimately, because of the politics and the bureaucracy of the world that she needs to try to change, now that she's essentially a teenage president, she's in the hospital, and her dad tells her, and it's Beth, her name is Beth. He says to her, and I'm going to read this to you because this is why this is my favorite comic of all time. Now, just by way of background, I became a father for the first time at the age of 46. And I never thought that I could have kids. I never thought my boys could swim, to be blunt. That's a whole other story that really don't want to bore you with. Suffice to say, when my daughter was born, my life was changed. And I absolutely love my Audrey. She's beautiful. She's the light of my life. And so is my wife. But Audrey, of course, you got to love your kid, right? And when I read this is what I think of when I think of Audrey. I think of my daughters. And he says to his daughter, "Can I tell you something amazing about yourself?" He says, "Every second your brain absorbs 20 quadrillion bits of data. It uses them to make complex decisions about everything from morality to toothpaste. It can check itself for errors, and when it finds them, rewrite its own programming. That's more than Fred Wayne's supercomputer can do, and it's the most heavily guarded object in the world. You have one of only 8 billion of these brains in the known universe, which seem like a lot until you consider the universe holds 100 billion galaxies. That means there's only one human brain for every 12 galaxies. Beth, you are the rarest, most precious substance in the universe. If anyone makes you feel like that's nothing, either they don't know any better or they're afraid of what you might accomplish. My money's on the latter." And that sold me. And those words are something that I just, my daughter was born on the spectrum for autism, and she's absolutely amazing. She's got a beautiful mind. And I thank Mark Russell for writing Prez, because when I think of this issue, this is my second favorite, but I suppose in my heart of hearts is probably my number one. But there's something else that's my number one. But number two, how can I not have this as my second favorite comic of all time? And in my true heart of emotional hearts, it's actually probably number one. But there's one other one, and I'm going to get to it right now. And what is number one? Surprise, surprise. Oh, pardon me. I'm not going to get to my number one yet. I still have one. There's two other ones which are also indirectly related to my daughter. But the second issue, the second ranking, is All-Star Western, Jonah Hex, number 34. And this is the second appearance, All-Star Western number 11, the second appearance of Jonah Hex. So I've got Jonah Hex, number 34, and All-Star Western. Now, why do I mention these two? Well, it's really simple. Jonah Hex is given a happy ending. And Jonah Hex, this is a guy who tried to tame the Wild West and wasn't really successful doing it. But what I love about Jimmy Palmiotti and Justin Gray's run, and this Darwin Cook drawn issue, and there's that guy, Darwin Cook again, the greatest artist that I've ever known. I never met him, but God, what a God he is of art. My favorite artist. This issue ends with Jonah Hex sailing off into the sunset with Tallulah Black, the darkest, most serious, brooding anti-hero of the West. Jonah Hex gets a happy ending. In an earlier issue, he actually has an adventure in the 21st century where he gets into a motorcycle accident, and the doctors think that he injured his face, but of course he didn't injure his face. His face always looks that ugly. But they gave him plastic surgery. They healed his face. So by the end of the run, he not only looks like Clint Eastwood and is as good looking as Clint Eastwood, but he's with a beautiful woman by the name of Tallulah Black, who actually still has her scars. Tallulah Black has her scars, but she's beautiful anyway. And she's particularly beautiful because she's drawn by Darwin Cook in this issue. And wow, to go from his early appearances to get that happy ending, I absolutely loved it. And quite frankly, it as an older reader, I like happy endings, and I like having, for all of us who have an up and down life, have a life where everything doesn't go exactly according to plan. It's that old expression: if you want to, how do you make God laugh? Tell him your plans, right? Yeah, you'll make her laugh. But in any event, it's a great story, and it's about happy endings. And how can it not be on my list? I got a huge Jonah Hex collection. I love it. Thank you, Jimmy Palmiotti and Justin Gray, for that. And thank you, Darwin Cook. God bless you. God bless your soul, my friend. Well, that leads to my now favorite all-time comic book of all time that, quite frankly, nothing really comes close. There's the Prez #2 that I mentioned that is a special place in my heart because of my daughter. But guys, Kingdom Come, Mark Waid, Alex Ross, Kingdom Come. This is not only one of the greatest, the best drawn series of all time. Story wise, it's the greatest comic book story of all time as well. You guys, Kingdom Come. I remember it coming out. I think it came out in, what was it, 96 or whatever? It's not important. All I remember is that I was already collecting comics a long time, and it was coming out at a time when I was thinking about stopping collecting comics. And this iconic image, if I had to pick one cover, it would be, I think this is Kingdom Come #4, the final issue. If I had to pick an epic one, this would be it. And the reason why is that this is a jaded Superman who gave up on humanity because a character by the name of Magog comes along. The Joker kills everyone in the Daily Planet, including Lois Lane. And despite that terrible loss, Superman still, of course, apprehends the Joker, still doesn't kill the Joker. He still stands by his principles. He doesn't take a life. But Magog comes along and kills the Joker. And the people of the world, in particular the people of Metropolis, they choose the man who would kill over the man who would not. They chose Magog over Superman in terms of popular opinion. And Superman, after having lost his wife, lost his best friend Jimmy Olsen, lost every aspect of his life, he abandons humanity. And even he upheld his principles, but humanity ultimately turned their back on him. And in the 10 years, this takes place 10 years after Superman leaves and sort of goes into isolation in the Fortress of Solitude. And in those 10 years, a new crop of heroes crops up, which are jaded. They're heroes they kill. They're sort of like the new wave of heroes. They're narcissistic heroes that put themselves above everyone else. They're more concerned. I mean, it's the story of our times. A narcissistic society, a crap society. Everybody's thinking about themselves. Everybody thinks they're special. Everybody wants to be heard. Blah, 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 blah. And nobody is doing the right thing. And of course, they're not afraid to kill. And I got to tell you, of course, Superman ultimately comes back on the scene. And in an epic battle with Captain Marvel, he lets Captain Marvel decide, because Captain Marvel is Billy Batson as well. And Billy Batson has a connection to humanity. He lets Billy Batson decide the fate of humanity and the relationship with metahumans. And of course, that's what happens. And ultimately, Superman is redeemed. And it ends, of course, with him being with Wonder Woman and her being pregnant and ending at the Planet Krypton Cafe. Such a beautiful story. The continuation of the story takes place in the Justice Society of America in a beautiful run, scripted and written by Jeff Johns, illustrated by Alex Ross. That's also a fantastic run. So it's sort of a sequel of sorts to Captain Marvel, or to Kingdom Come. And I one thing I really love is, I love in particular, I got all the cards. Now I bought the box, got the whole box, the preview. I got all the cards for Kingdom Come, the Kingdom Come cards, along with what there is a rare. I've got the Kingdom Come statue, as well as the signed Mark Waid card of Superman looking down when he first appears after coming back out of isolation. A great card signed by Mark Waid where he's looking down on the masses, and he has that dark Superman S. Speaking of which, I should have put this on earlier, but just epic. I also have the Kingdom Come statue, the silver Kingdom Come statue. It's at my office, and you want to know how much Kingdom Come has impacted me. Why is it at my office? I'm a lawyer by occupation, and I have this beautiful Alex Ross Kingdom Come Superman statue where Superman is sort of looking down like that. He's calm, his eyes are closed. It's a gorgeous statue, and it's a symbol of just how powerful Superman is, and he's powerful not because of his superpowers per se, but because of his ability to hear everyone's plea for help, and he meditates, and he listens to his mind. He quiets his mind. And only by quieting the mind can you truly come up with answers. There's a difference between prayer and meditation. Prayer is when you ask for something. Meditation is when you listen for the answers. And Superman is always listening. But the way that you get answers is by quieting the mind, and the answers will come to you. And it's that kind of quiet meditation that Superman has, that he's able to continuously engage in the never-ending battle. And it's a statue that whenever I'm feeling stressed at work, I stare at my Kingdom Come statue. It's in my office. It looks gorgeous, my work office, and I look at it, and it reminds me that I got to calm myself down. If I'm feeling stress or anxiety, I got to calm my mind, and I'm inspired by Kingdom Come Superman. It is the greatest comic book story of all time. It is a timeless story. I've yet to read anything better, hands down. Nothing even comes close. It is Mark Waid's epic story. I love Mark Waid. I'll always love Mark Waid as a writer. His greatest story that he's ever written has already been written. It's Kingdom Come. Kudos to Alex Ross, who I believe wrote some of it as well. And Alex Ross is fantastic. Gorgeous visuals on it. Again, I mean, wow. Just absolute wow. I got the Absolute Edition. I could show all that, but good Lord. So much Kingdom Come. In any event, guys, that's it for my top 50. Wow. That took 5 videos to go through at about 20 minutes to a half hour each. Took a while to go through it all, but boy, guys, there you have it. I'll probably leave timestamps for all these things. Thank you so much for listening to me talk about all this. And hey, guys, until next time, Comic Boom, out.